Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Dawn Bennett with Touch Remedies, and I'm here with my good friend and business coach, Les Hill. So welcome, Les. It's nice to see you again.
Hi, Dawn. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you're going to Sturgis in a few days.
Yes, 1.5 days. Well, it's coming up almost on just one day now.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So when you're there, tell me a little bit. I know that you love interacting with people. It's one of the things that you do very well. How do you anticipate interacting with people in these crowds now that, COVID's around? People are a little bit worried about touching and physical contact.
So I probably have one of those radical views that a lot of people would go, you're not being fair to the people around you, and whether you like it or not, you could be one of those people that spreads it. And I'm willing to do whatever the other person is willing to allow me to do. So for me, I shake hands. Some people joke and do the elbow, and then the next thing you know, we're shaking hands. Mm-hmm. And I also hug. If I bump into somebody that I know that I haven't seen for a long time, I will say, you want a hug? And I give people permission to say no. I make it very casual. I don't get in their space. I don't come into their bubble and suffocate them. So they can't, well, I can't say no, otherwise it's going to be weird. No, I don't do that. I ask if people want that, because what I've been finding out more and more recently, Dawn, is people are starved for the sharing of energy that comes from hugging. Mm. And to me, the risk of getting the virus, if I haven't had it already, which now we believe the family next door had it, and we walk every day and have since February. And his house cleaner tested positive the other day. And he's like, well, Les, I think we've all had it. And I remember when I had a sore throat and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, if I have had it, great. If I haven't had it and I get it and it's my time, then it's God's message to me that it's time to go visit him. And I'm A-okay with that. I've had a great life.
Cool.
I tend to share that with people and let people know I'm easy, whatever they're comfortable with.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that you're noticing people are so starved for hugs right now, because there's a lot of research out there that says that good hugging and physical contact actually calms down the fight-flight system and supports immunity. And they can actually show this through scientific research. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, for me, if you look, and there are the things like suicide, I just heard this new statistic yesterday from somebody that works in government, said suicide is up 600% in Minnesota. Wow. And when you think about that, and you think about the fact that people are hiding, so, look, this is all you're going to get to know about me. Shy people are not being brought out. They're getting to hide, which has them shrink more and more and more. And then the pressures of life and stress, it all screams unhealthy. And, my frustration with the time we're in now is nobody's being responsible for the damage that no touching is doing to the world and to people. And it is going to have a long impact.
Yeah, because we're not even touching each other with our eyes anymore.
No.
Right? With masks, a lot of people tend to look down. They tend to, like you said,
draw in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and especially since you grew up in a culture that is much more touch forward, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in England.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general in England, yes, there's a little bit of austereness that some people would say happens. Mm-hmm. I would say that's more upper class. I grew up in the middle class, very much probably upper middle class. However, there was no lack of love. There was no lack of any kind of we had hugs. I hugged my dad. We didn't talk about love until I was much older, until I did some personal training work, and I got to tell my dad I loved him, and he says the only regret I have is I didn't get to tell my dad that. And we moved to France when I was 8, and in France I learned a whole new level, and that was kissing cheek to cheek, even men.
Mm-hmm.
And hugging and all of that, and neighbors and people showed it was almost a level of respect that was generated through that touch. And the common joke was, if it was somebody that you loved and was a dating kind of thing, it was cheek and on the lips.
Aha. That's how you differentiate.
Yes, it is. And that was always the big thing, and I think I have these recollections of some of the ladies, the older ladies, and that would do the cheek and sneak in a kiss just because they wanted more. and the boys that I was friends with would say, "Careful, and I can't remember the name at the moment, but there's such and such a person, and she likes the 3-kiss deal."
That's fantastic.
So, but it was always in where touch was used to communicate. And as you know from working with me, and I am one of these people that says 85 to 95, and it's statistic, 85 to 95% of our communication is nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
And
that
includes touching.
Yeah.
And even if it's a touch, a brush, there's such an importance to that. Now, I know there are people that are very sensitive. Mm-hmm. Look, you're in my space, even before COVID. Mm-hmm. You touch them and there's a visceral physical reaction from whatever their upbringing is or whatever's happened to them. So there is that responsibility. And there are times that I've had to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't," and they'll like, "No, it's not you, Les." Mm-hmm. Right. And they own it, which is wonderful. And they're not offended. They don't take offense. In fact, because I shrug back and apologize, they're like, no, it's okay. It's just me.
Yeah. And how great that you realize it and apologize, right? Because we all do make mistakes sometimes, or we misread body signals or misread intention. Yeah.
Oh, all the time. I mean, especially if you have attraction for somebody and they don't have that same attraction back.
Yeah.
You have a familiarity with them that they don't have that same experience. Mm-hmm. So when you go into their bubble, it's uncomfortable. And that's, it's easy to misread, especially if you're on a high for touch and excited and excitement. You are looking through a filter that is elevated, that may not show you some of the nuances that would otherwise tell you.
That makes sense. Well, thank you for sharing. Anything else that you'd like to share with the audience about how touch can help you grow community, or ways that you've seen it grow community somewhere in your life?
So I dance, and I used to teach country western dance and line dancing. And one of the things about touch and one of the things about dancing is that it allows you to share that energy. Mm-hmm. There's a formal way. There's a way that you hold the other person that generates that field of what I call almost electrical energy as you're on the dance floor. Mm-hmm. And when the connection is there, when that synergy is there, when that path of following and creating energy together it almost has a sexuality to it. Mm-hmm. It's an energy that drives up and is so powerful. It can be addicting. I mean, for many years, I danced 4, 5, sometimes 6 nights a week.
Even though you mentioned that there's almost something sexual, but it doesn't even have to be sexual. It just brings that energy that we think of sometimes as sexuality, right? That
Yep.
raw connection
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes we label something different.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that also brings fear to some people when there's no fear necessary because they have never experienced it and except in a sexual relationship. So when it suddenly shows up, there are times, and I've seen this from some religious people, right, that come out and they get into this dance and they suddenly experience this, and it's almost an electrical shock because they suddenly realize, whoa, I can't go there. And then to calm them down and say, look, this is, your clothes are on, there's nothing going on, you're going to leave friends tonight and go your separate ways, and then come back and dance another time. And that's the excitement and the energy and the health that's associated with it. And if you think about it, all cultures dance in variety of ways.
It's true. Well, and back in the day, it used to be the only way you could touch a member of the opposite sex, right? You help them into the carriage, men help women in the carriage, or you dance. And those are the only two ways you were allowed to touch cross gender.
You bet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's probably the only other thing. And I my challenge to anybody is, if you are currently dealing with a lack of touch in your life and you're single, I invite you to find a studio. There's one in particular in Woodbury that follows, has been approved by the state of Minnesota, and they do an amazing job, and you get to dance and you get to experience that.
Fun.
Yeah.
Great tip. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Awesome. And thank you very much for
You're welcome.
having me.
And for anyone that's interested more about what Les does with Less is More Coaching, I'll have all of his information at the bottom of the YouTube channel. Or you could contact me, Dawn Bennett, at Touch Remedies. We'll see you again soon.